What's good? It's Fever. Today I wanted to talk a bit more about Dauntless and clue you into why I see it as a big deal and why exactly I'm excited for it. So if you haven't heard of Dauntless, the core game experience is very basic. You and a small group of players head on to a weird floating island type thing which is instanced away from the rest of the game. And you do this to hunt a behemoth, a giant monster that has a very unique appearance but also its own behaviors and abilities and attacks. It's kind of like a boss in a box. It is supposed to be challenging, and then using a style of action combat that is slower and more deliberate while being kitted out with different weapons and gear made from bits and pieces from prior behemoths that you've killed. You take on the challenge with your friends and hopefully come out victorious. Now, this may sound familiar because this is almost exactly how Monster Hunter works. A key difference here is just that this game is going to be available for PC, which Monster Hunter isn't. And the only real games that I can think of that even use this type of core experience, even off of the PC, would be things like God Eater or Raiders, or even pre-nerf big-ass monster hunting in Terra. And because of this, there already exists a decent sized gap in the market that this game fills, that people have been looking for. Like, as a Monster Hunter fan myself, I can't tell you the amount of times that I've actually Googled Monster Hunter like games and then just was sad because they don't exist. We are out there, but more importantly, the market is much bigger than it appears because Monster Hunter has suffered from two huge issues. It's been on mobile platforms mainly, so like the PSP and the DS, which generally doesn't attract the audience that might like this game. And two, it was seen as too hard or too much or didn't hold your hand because there aren't damage numbers or enemy health bars or the enemy indicator on the map, and you can't outgear the fights, and it felt slow. The thing is, though, that in recent years, you just ask a lot of people what they really loved or love about Terra, and they will say those big-ass monster fights. But also things like the less forgiving and more tactical type combat has really gained traction with the Souls series or Dragon's Dogma. Even just there's an audience that just looks for a challenging game. Dauntless, as its own game, is very sparse on details outside of the hunt right now. There are some confirmed behemoths, some weapon types, and they've said yes, there will be crafting. But what I'm excited to see unfold is all of the stuff they will add to the game to support that very basic gameplay loop. Monster Hunter has resource collection on the maps, they have fishing, sometimes farming, there's this weird cat management system, the ranked quest clan hall, the randomized exploration type maps and skills, talismans, relics, and a crafting system and a loot system designed in the pits of hell by the Desire Sensor, which sometimes is a little bit hit or miss, but none of which feels mandatory. Dauntless could add some or all of that, or they could make up their own shit. They also have benefits and options just by being on the PC platform, like the game being infinitely easier to play with friends. There aren't 40 versions of the same type of game spanning on 4 different consoles and in some case required you to be in the same room to play. And coming from someone who would go to these like weird Monster Hunter meetups in Vancouver, hunting or rather slaying monsters together is among the best solely cooperative experiences that is out there. And we really do need more cooperative games. The industry kind of abandoned them in lieu of competitive driven PvP style games, or instead give weak co-op games where it barely mattered that you were playing with other people, and sometimes you can't even tell if it's a real person or a bot. They also do plan to do ongoing development instead of separate games or expansions, so they can really play with delivering that service, and they could do things like make certain monsters only appear or are more powerful on certain days. They could change the weather or the tile sets or the behemoth seasonally. They could even offer more event-based limited time stuff, so there's like a behemoth that's only around in April and killing it gives you a title or fame or something. I've been playing a lot of mobile games like Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, and say what you will about mobile games, the way a lot of them support themselves with events and limited time stuff and really leverage the game as a service is just a format that is exciting and works really well with a simple game attached to it. And taken from their main website, the idea of floating islands that shift and change with time, the islands being where the behemoths are found, is their quote, not mine, as well as saying that the game is a living and breathing place with history and a future that you help shape. That's theirs. That's their quote. These are very provocative statements to accompany the type of game it is. And if you look at a game like Warframe, funny enough, it has a very similar cooperative mission out gameplay loop, except you have many options outside of just a boss in a box. But they're selling the fantasy that you are this like super fucking powerful ninja robot, but looking at what they've done and added around that core gameplay is rad. And looking at Phoenix Labs, the guys behind Dauntless, to see what they build around their game is what I'm excited about. It's going to be painful for fans and probably the development team, which has talent coming from big studios like Riot and BioWare, if you've heard of those companies, to constantly hear the Monster Hunter comparisons. Those comparisons exist and are so widely thrown around because we love that core game, and we will play a game that has the same core mechanic because it doesn't exist. And I hope that they leverage that love instead of feeling like they need to fundamentally alter it to make their mark. And that core concept really does exist in a cooperative, challenge-based PvE-styled game. And who knows? It seems like whenever a game and an underrepresented genre gets a little bit of shine, gets a little bit of love, even if they muck it up, this might be the catalyst for a wave of these type of games in the future. We can only wait and see. So yeah, that's it for me. I just wanted to explain why I'm pretty hyped up for Dauntless. Until next time, this is Fever.